There's something about the smell of coffee that makes strangers feel like neighbors. I've been thinking about that a lot lately. About how a coffee shop becomes more than just a place to buy a drink. How it becomes a ritual, a pause in the day. A moment where the world slows down just enough to let you breathe. The shop on Maple Street has been there for 15 years. I know because I've been going there almost that long. It's the kind of place that doesn't change much. Same worn leather chairs, same jazz playing softly in the background, same light filtering through the front windows in the morning like it's trying to tell you something about second chances. I watch people there. I always have. It's a habit I picked up when I was younger and lonelier. This quiet observation of other lives unfolding. The regulars with their usual orders. The tourists studying the menu like it holds secrets. The business people on their phones, half present. The students with their laptops, building futures one essay at a time. And Marcus. I should tell you about Marcus. He started working there maybe 2 years ago. Young, mid-20s probably, with dark skin and careful hands, and a smile that seemed like it took effort some days. He had a way of remembering everyone's order after they'd been there just twice. A gift for names, for small talk that felt genuine rather than scripted. "Morning, Claire," he'd say to the woman who always ordered a double shot with oat milk. "How'd the presentation go?" "Usual, James?" To the man in the gray suit who never looked up from his phone. "Still extra hot?" He made people feel seen. That's rare, I think, especially in a city where most of us spend our lives trying to be invisible. There was another regular, too. Came in every Tuesday and Friday morning, always at 7:30. You could set your watch by him. Late 50s, maybe early 60s, with silver hair and expensive suits that probably cost more than some people make in a month. He carried himself like someone who was used to rooms going quiet when he entered them. I didn't know his name then. None of us did, really. But we all knew who he was. You could feel the weight of him, the way money and power create their own gravity. He never said much. Just ordered his coffee, a pour-over, single origin, whatever the special was that day, and sat at the same table by the window. Sometimes he read the paper. Sometimes he just stared out at the street like he was looking for something he couldn't quite name. Marcus always took his order, always wrote his name on the cup, and always spelled it wrong, not by accident. That much was clear if you paid attention. The misspellings were too creative, too deliberate. Philip instead of Philip. Philip instead of Philip. Once memorably, Philip, with a little smiley face drawn next to it. The man never corrected him, never even acknowledged it. Just took his coffee and went to his table and did whatever wealthy men do when they're pretending to be ordinary people for an hour. I thought it was funny at first, a small rebellion, the kind of thing that makes minimum wage feel a little less crushing when you're dealing with people who'll never know what that weight feels like. But then I started watching more carefully, started noticing the way Marcus's jaw would tighten when that particular customer walked through the door, the way his shoulders would set, the deliberate care he took in writing each wrong letter, like he was signing his name to something that mattered. There was history there. Had to be. You don't misspell someone's name that consistently, without reason. I wanted to ask about it, almost did, a few times. But there are some stories you don't push for. Some wounds that need their own time to breathe into words. And then one Friday morning, everything changed. I was there early, sitting in my usual corner, with my usual tea. The light was soft and gray, threatening rain. The jazz was Coltrane, I think, something melancholic and searching. Marcus was behind the counter, wiping down the espresso machine with the kind of attention that suggested he was thinking about something else entirely. The door opened. The man in the expensive suit. 7:30 exactly. He walked to the counter, ordered his pour-over. Marcus wrote his name on the cup. Philip, this time, with an unnecessary accent mark over the E. The man took the cup, but instead of going to his table, he stood there, just stood there, looking at Marcus with an expression I couldn't quite read. "Do you know who I am?" he asked quietly. The shop wasn't crowded yet. Just a handful of us scattered around, pretending not to listen, but listening anyway because that's what people do. Marcus met his eyes. "Yes, sir. I know exactly who you are." Something passed between them then. Something old and painful and still bleeding. "Then you know," the man said, "that I could make your life very difficult." Marcus didn't flinch. "Yes, sir. I expect you could." The air in the shop felt different, heavy, like we were all holding our breath without meaning to. The man nodded slowly, set his coffee down on the counter, still full. "I'll be in touch," he said. And then he left. Walked out into the gray morning without looking back. The door chimed behind him like punctuation. Marcus stood there for a moment, staring at the space where the man had been. His hands were shaking, just slightly, but enough to see if you were paying attention. I should have said something, should have asked if he was okay. But sometimes witnessing is all we can offer. He picked up the coffee cup, Philippe with its misplaced accent, and poured it down the sink. Slowly, deliberately, like a ritual of his own. 3 days later, the signs went up. The coffee shop was closing, lease terminated, effective immediately. A polite notice thanked customers for their patronage and recommended 3 other coffee shops in the area. All of them chains, all of them lacking souls. The owner was a small woman named Beth, who'd been running the place since before I started coming there. She had the look of someone who'd just been hit by something she never saw coming. "I don't understand," she kept saying to anyone who would listen. "My lease wasn't up for 2 more years. But they bought the building. They're tearing it down. There's nothing I can do." We all knew who "they" was. Didn't need to ask. The billionaire's revenge was swift and unexpected. Not against Marcus directly. That would have been too obvious, too crude. No, he'd destroyed the whole ecosystem, eliminated the habitat. I wondered if he felt powerful doing it, if it filled some hollow place inside him, if revenge ever really does what we hope it will. The coffee shop had its last day on a Sunday. Beth put out pastries for free. Someone brought champagne. We all stood around like we were at a wake for a place that wasn't dead yet, but soon would be. Marcus worked his final shift quietly, made drinks with the same care he always had, wrote names on cups. Spelled correctly this time, I noticed. Every single one. When my turn came, I ordered my tea and watched him write Sarah in neat, careful letters. "I'm sorry," I said, "about all of this." He looked up at me, really looked, like he was trying to decide if I was just offering empty sympathy or something more substantial. "Thank you," he said finally, "but it's not your fault." "Still," I said, "it's not right." He handed me my tea, smiled a little. "No, but most things aren't." I should have left it there, should have taken my tea and gone to my corner and let him have his dignity, but I couldn't help myself. "Why?" I asked. Why did you keep spelling his name wrong? Marcus was quiet for a long moment, looked down at his hands, at the counter, at anywhere but me. My brother, he said finally, worked for him. Years ago. Was a good kid. Smart. Went to the right schools. Got the right degree. Landed a job at his company. Junior analyst or something. My mom was so proud. He paused. Took a breath that seemed to hurt. There was an error in some report. Not even a big one. A decimal point in the wrong place. Could have been fixed in 5 minutes. But my brother's boss needed someone to blame. And my brother was new and young and black and easy to sacrifice. The shop had gone quiet. Everyone pretending not to listen, but listening anyway. He was fired. Not just fired, blacklisted. This man, Marcus gestured vaguely toward where the billionaire usually sat. He made sure my brother couldn't get another job in finance. Not in this city, not anywhere. Just erased his whole future because it was convenient. What happened to him? I asked, though part of me didn't want to know. He's a night security guard now, at a warehouse. Makes barely enough to get by. Still pays on those student loans. Still lives with our mom because he can't afford anything else. Marcus's voice was steady, but his eyes weren't. He was going to change things for our family, and one man decided that didn't matter. So, you spelled his name wrong, I said. So I spelled his name wrong, Marcus agreed. Every single time. For 2 years. It was petty and small and pointless. But it was all I could do. The only power I had. He laughed a little, but it didn't sound happy. Guess I shouldn't have pushed it. Guess that's what power does when you challenge it. Even in the smallest way. It crushes everything around you, just to make a point. I didn't know what to say. What could I say? That justice exists? That good things come to good people? That the world is fair? We all know those are lies we tell ourselves to make the days bearable. I took my tea, went to my corner, watched the last few hours of the coffee shop's life tick away like grains of sand. That was 3 months ago. The building came down fast. Within 2 weeks, it was just rubble. Within a month, foundation for something new, something sleek and expensive, and utterly lacking the warmth that used to live in that space. I found a new coffee shop. Had to. We all did. But it's not the same. The tea tastes different. The light falls wrong. The jazz, if they play any at all, is just music, rather than the soundtrack to small, quiet, human moments. I saw Marcus once, about 6 weeks after the closure. He was walking down Maple Street with a girl, both of them laughing about something. He looked lighter, somehow. Younger. Like a weight had been lifted that he didn't even know he was carrying. I didn't stop him. Didn't want to bring that whole story back to the surface when he seemed to be moving past it. But I wondered where he was working now. If he was writing names on cups? If he was spelling them correctly. And then, last week, something unexpected happened. I was walking past where the old coffee shop used to be. They'd finished the new building, some kind of luxury apartments, the kind that start at $3,000 a month for a studio. The ground floor was retail space, still empty, with brown paper covering the windows. But as I walked past, I saw someone inside. Just a shadow, really, but something about the shape of him made me stop. I cupped my hands against the glass, peered through a gap in the paper. It was him, the billionaire, Philip, or Felipe, or whatever his actual name was. Standing in the empty space with an architect's plans spread across a makeshift table. Pointing at things. Explaining something to someone I couldn't see. I should have kept walking, should have minded my own business. But I stood there, watching, trying to understand what I was seeing. That's when Marcus walked into view. I actually gasped, actually pressed my hand against the glass, like I could reach through it and confirm what I was seeing was real. Marcus was there, in that empty space, listening to the billionaire explain something about the layout. He was nodding, taking notes, looking at the plans with the kind of attention that suggested he understood them. The billionaire said something. Marcus laughed. Actually laughed? Put his hand on the man's shoulder for just a second, familiar and warm. I stood there for probably 5 minutes, watching them work through the plans together, watching them move around the space like they were choreographing something, watching them exist in the same room without the weight of history crushing everything around them. Finally, they noticed me, both of them, at the same time, turning to see this strange woman, with her face pressed against the glass like a child at a toy store. Marcus waved, smiled, gestured for me to come inside. The door was unlocked. I pushed it open, stepped into the space that smelled like fresh paint and possibility. "Sarah," Marcus said warmly, "what are you doing here?" "I was just walking by," I said, which was true but also felt like an inadequate explanation for my presence. "I saw you, and I was confused, and I looked between him and the billionaire. "What is this?" Marcus looked at the other man. Some kind of silent communication passed between them. "This," the billionaire said, and his voice was different than I remembered, softer somehow, "is going to be a coffee shop." I stared at him. "I don't understand." "Neither did I," Marcus said. "For a while." The billionaire pulled out a chair from somewhere, offered it to me, sat down himself on an upturned paint bucket. Marcus leaned against the wall, arms crossed, but his posture was relaxed rather than defensive. "I need to tell you something," the billionaire said to me, though really he seemed to be saying it to the room, to the space, to the ghost of what used to be here, about who I am, or who I was, or who I'm trying not to be anymore. He was quiet for a moment. Then, "My name is Philip, and I am very, very good at making money. That's all I've ever been good at. Making money, building companies, destroying them when they're no longer useful, moving people around like chess pieces, winning." He said the last word like it tasted bad. "But I'm not very good at being human," he continued. "Not very good at seeing the consequences of my efficiency. The lives I've optimized away, the futures I've erased because they were inconvenient to my bottom line." I looked at Marcus. He was watching Philip with an expression I couldn't quite read. "Marcus's brother," Philip said, "was fired because I created a culture where fear mattered more than fairness, where it was safer to sacrifice someone than to admit a simple mistake. I didn't fire him personally, didn't even know his name, but I built the machine that chewed him up. That's worse, I think. Individual cruelty you can understand. Systemic cruelty is harder to face." "Why are you telling me this?" I asked. "Because I need someone to hear it," he said, simply. Someone who was there, who saw what I did when I felt threatened by a young man spelling my name wrong on coffee cups. He laughed, but it was the saddest sound. Can you imagine? Being so insecure, so fragile, that a misspelled name feels like an attack? That you have to destroy an entire business, put a dozen people out of work, eliminate a community gathering space just to prove you still have power? "I can't," I said honestly. "Neither can I," he said. "Not anymore. That's the strange part. I did it. I absolutely did it." Called my real estate people, bought the building, terminated the lease, did it all in one afternoon while I was angry and embarrassed and feeling small in a way I didn't know how to handle. He looked around the empty space. And then I had to live with it. Had to walk past this corner and see the rubble. See the sign that said, "Thank you for 15 years." See Beth, who I'd destroyed, trying to find a new location and failing because commercial rent in this city is insane, and she didn't have the capital to start over. "So what is this?" I asked again. "Penance? Maybe," Philip said. "Or maybe just the first step toward being a person I can stand to see in the mirror." Marcus pushed off from the wall, came to stand near us. "He showed up at my apartment," he said. 3 weeks after everything closed. I almost didn't let him in. Thought he was coming to threaten me or something. But he just stood there in the hallway and said, "I need to know about your brother." So I told him, Marcus continued. Told him everything. And he listened. Actually listened. Didn't make excuses or try to justify it. Just, listened. And then, Philip picked up the story, I spent 2 weeks finding Marcus's brother. Found out where he was working. Showed up at his shift change and asked if he'd talk to me. "Did he?" I asked. "Eventually," Philip said. "After he told me exactly what he thought of me and men like me. After he'd laid out every way my company had destroyed his life. After he cried, which I think surprised him more than it surprised me. The empty space felt full suddenly. Full of words and history and something that might have been hope trying to bloom in concrete. "I can't give him back the years he lost," Philip said. "Can't undo the damage to his career, or his confidence, or his dreams. But I could offer him a job, a real one, doing what he was trained to do. And when he said he'd only take it if I made things right with Marcus, I realized I was being given a gift I didn't deserve. So this," Marcus gestured around us, "is part of making things right." Philip bought the building back. Well, he still owns it, but he's giving me the space. Rent-free for 5 years. Enough time to build something sustainable. "Beth's coming back," Philip added. "Not as the owner. Marcus will be the owner. But she'll run the operations. And I've provided enough capital to do it right. Good equipment, fair wages, benefits. All the things I've spent my career arguing were too expensive." I looked at Marcus. "You're going to run a coffee shop?" He grinned. "I'm going to run the hell out of a coffee shop." "And I," Philip said, standing up slowly like his bones hurt, "I'm going to be a customer, a real one. Not the kind who treats service workers like they're invisible. The kind who learns names and asks about people's days and leaves good tips." He looked at Marcus. "And if you want to spell my name wrong sometimes, just to remind me where I came from and where I'm trying not to go back to, I'll understand." Marcus shook his head. "I think I'm done with that," he said. "That was anger. This is something else." "What is it?" I asked. Marcus thought about it. "Hope, maybe? Or just a chance to build something good. To create the kind of place where people feel valued. All people. The customers and the workers and the neighborhood." "When does it open?" I asked. 2 months, Philip said. "If we stay on schedule." "And I've been told," he glanced at Marcus with something that might have been respect, "that we stay on schedule, or Marcus will spell my name wrong in the grand opening announcement." Marcus laughed. "That's right. Grand opening, sponsored by Philip Enterprises." They were joking. Actually joking with each other. The Barista and the Billionaire, finding something that looked like friendship in the ruins of their own worst selves. I left them there, planning their coffee shop, making lists of what needed to be done, who needed to be hired, what the menu should look like. They barely noticed when I slipped out the door. Walking home, I thought about revenge and redemption and the strange paths we take between them. About how sometimes the swift and unexpected thing isn't destruction, but repair. Isn't cruelty, but the courage to admit you were wrong. About how power, real power, isn't in crushing people who challenge you. It's in letting yourself be challenged. In letting yourself be changed by the encounter. The coffee shop opened last month. I was there on the first day. So were a lot of people from the old place. The regulars who'd been displaced. The neighborhood folks who'd missed having a gathering space. The curious who'd heard about the story and wanted to see what redemption looked like when it served coffee. Beth was behind the counter, looking younger than I'd seen her in years. Marcus was there too, not working the counter, but everywhere at once, making sure everything was perfect, making sure everyone felt welcome. And Philip was there, sitting at a table near the window. The same table he'd always claimed in the old shop. Reading his paper, drinking his pour-over. When I ordered my tea, Marcus wrote my name on the cup, spelled it perfectly, then added a little heart next to it. "Welcome home," he said. And that's what it felt like. Not new, not different. Home. I took my tea to my usual corner. The light fell the same way it used to. The jazz playing was Coltrane again, something melancholic and searching. The smell of coffee made strangers feel like neighbors. Philip looked up from his paper, caught my eye, raised his cup in a small salute. I raised mine back, and I realized then what I'd been watching all these months. Not revenge at all, not really. What I'd been witnessing was the painful, beautiful work of people trying to become better than their worst moments. Of a young man choosing to forgive without forgetting. Of a powerful man learning that power means nothing if it's built on other people's pain. The barista had spelled his name wrong on purpose. The billionaire's revenge had been swift and unexpected. But between those two truths was a third one, that sometimes the story doesn't end where we think it will. Sometimes it keeps going, keeps turning, keeps offering chances we didn't know we needed. Sometimes, if we're very lucky, it offers us a way home. The evening is settling now. My tea has gone cold, but I'm not ready to leave yet. There's something healing in this space, something that feels like proof that we're more than our worst decisions, that cruelty doesn't have to have the last word, that even the stories that start with hurt can end with hope, if we're brave enough to let them. Outside, the light is fading to amber. Soon the streetlights will flicker on. People will head home to dinners and families and the small rituals that make life bearable. The coffee shop will close for the night. The chairs will go up on the tables. The machines will be wiped down and covered. But tomorrow, it will open again. And the day after that. And the day after that. And maybe that's what redemption looks like. Not a single grand gesture. Just the steady, daily work of showing up and trying to do better. Of making space for each other. Of spelling names correctly, not because you have to, but because you want to. I think I'll come back tomorrow. Order my tea. Sit in my corner. Watch the light fall through the windows, like it's trying to tell me something about second chances. There's something healing in that, don't you think? Something that tastes a little bit like hope.